Welcome back to my channel. My name is Charles Treadaway, and it is a pleasure to have you tuning in today. Today, we will be exploring what it is like behind the scenes as a top NFL draft prospect. Have you ever watched the NFL draft and seen a prospect walk across the stage, shake the commissioner's hand, and then celebrate with their friends and family, and wondered what it would feel like to be in their shoes? As fans, we get to experience all the highs of these players, from the touchdowns, the big hits, and the big wins. Then a couple months down the line, they're walking across the stage to get drafted. But we as fans never get to see what kind of preparation goes into being a top draft pick. As a sports management marketing major who used to play football in high school, I've always been very interested in the inner workings and behind the scenes of the NFL draft. I dream of one day being able to work for an NFL team. Today, we are going to be analyzing the Pivot podcast and the episode they put out with Heisman-winning quarterback Bryce Young on how Bryce Young handled all the pressure put onto him by the media while he was preparing for the NFL draft and the struggle he has faced throughout his life as an undersized African-American quarterback. The Pivot podcast is a popular football podcast intended for the general audience of football fans, from diehard fans to casual fans who just want to keep tabs on what's happening in the football world. The show is hosted by former NFL stars Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor. The Pivot podcast uses different genre conventions throughout the show to inform, connect with, and entertain their audience.
You had it made for you, and it's cool. I feel like everyone's subjected to their own opinion. I don't take it personally or anything, but for me, I know all it took to get there, and I'm proud of that.
Man, you brought up a couple times, and it's sadly become the narrative. You gotta be getting tired of that small shit. Have you always, they act like you are a damn Lord of the Rings hobbit or something. Like, is it that, because grading high school, Heisman Trophy winner, has that always been there? Because the league will go find some shit to knock you and take some money from you now. Has it always been there? Have you always been questioned about your size?
For sure. Literally, I couldn't remember a time I wasn't. I've always been, respective to the people around me. I've always been this height. I've always been shorter. I've always been smaller. And
the show hosts do an amazing job using their tone to engage fans. The hosts know when to be serious and ask deep questions, and when to switch up to their enthusiastic, funny, and unfiltered selves. In a way, this makes fans feel like they are a part of the podcast sitting in a chair right next to them. Tying into the tone of the podcast, the setting of the podcast episode is the living room of a beautiful home. Recording their podcast at home makes the conversation feel more genuine and intimate between everybody. This makes fans feel more immersed on the conversation than if the podcast was recorded in a professional studio. Lastly, throughout the podcast, the hosts talk to Bryce about how he is preparing for the NFL draft and share their personal stories of when they were all going through the same draft process. When listening to the hosts talk about what they went through really adds a lot of relatability to their conversation. As fans, we will never get to experience the NFL draft like a player would. And hearing different inside perspective not only motivates the guests, but also the fans. As I am writing this, Bryce Young has just finished his second season as the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. And so far, his career has been full of ups and downs. His rookie year was full of hardships as he finished the 2023 season with a 2-15 record and 10 interceptions. This previous season was a roller coaster for Young. After a rough start to the season, Young was benched for an aging veteran. Some young players in the league may have taken being benched harshly, but not Bryce Young. Week 8, Bryce got another chance as the starter, and through 9 games, Bryce finished the game with 20 touchdowns and a 5-12 record. Bryce Young has proved he can be a solid starting quarterback in the NFL. From the scrutiny placed on him by the media and the ups and downs he has had on the field, Bryce Young has a bright future ahead of him, and now all we can do is sit back and watch. Thank you for joining in today. I hope you enjoyed the video.